Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Oh, Stomping Jen. I'm trying to talk over those chimpanzees. Now listen here. This is episode 101, Stomping Jen. Only 999 more episodes till we get to 4 digits.
Oh my God.
Can we do it?
Is that right? 990? That's not right.
What?
That's
999
No.
plus 101.
That doesn't seem right.
What does that add up to?
Like, not the right number.
Oh, well, math isn't my strong suit. You know what is my strong suit?
What? Doing
Talking,
this podcast?
yeah, talking to interesting people. And we have some great guests back for a second appearance. Matt and Lindsey from Oak and Ash Farm and Distillery.
Woohoo.
And I will say, they are one of the most highly downloaded of our episodes in the last couple of months. They're still in the top 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Month after month. So people are listening to their podcast actually quite a bit and downloading it.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so we're going to talk to them again. They have some updates to share with us, and we'll hear them on the other side of the amazing intro music that I produced. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
The Soft Serve Podcast.
Creamy, delicious ideas without the creepy truck. All right, Stomping Jen.
Yes.
No creepy trucks.
No. The number you were looking for was 899.
899. Whoops. This is not off to a good start, but we're going to get it off to a better start, Stomping Jen,
right.
because we're going to say hello to our friends and prior guests, Matt and Lindsey from Oak and Ash Farm and Distillery. Hi, Matt, and hi, Lindsey.
Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome back. Thank you for coming back on the podcast. We really appreciate you coming to talk to us about all that you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having us again.
Yeah.
Yep. And so last time we talked, I have to ask you about this. You told us it was in the spring, I think, and you had just ordered some bees, right?
Yes. Yep.
And they were, remind me, were they some kind of blue bee? Stomping Jen?
We had 2 different kinds, and we kind of had we split custody of them, basically. Matt was in charge of the mason bees, and I was in charge of the leaf cutter bees. And they come out at 2 different times of year. So Matt ordered the mason bees, and I ordered the leaf cutters, and we were both responsible for care and maintenance of our little baby bees.
I'm sensing a kind of bee husbandry contest here.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a whose bees are going to do better. It was a little competitive.
And whose bees won? That sounds like a weird.
Nobody's bees won. It was.
Are they still
We learned
alive?
a lot about having these bees this year.
We learned a lot of hard lessons. The mason bees come out first, and the mason bees did well until sugar ants got into the house.
Oh, no.
And actually they're attracted to the scent of the pollen, and they dug out all of the chambers that were there and ate the pollen, which means that the baby bees died because they had nothing to eat. And I was very angry.
Oh my God. Dastardly ants.
It was not a thing we foresaw.
Oh, God.
Basically, everything I had read said you can hang it at least 5 feet up in the air on
The
a
house
tree.
to make the
the
bee house.
The nesting site. So I put it up 5 feet up a a tree down front, put it in the sun where you're supposed to put it, and then one day Lindsey goes down and there was ants crawling all over it. So
and I like pulled the tubes out and they were literally just like powder. And I was like in tears. Like you get so attached to these things and you're just like, oh,
so we did an emergency evacuation, moved their nest in sight. And then actually Lindsey said that she saw some tubes. So some of them,
there are some new ones.
I'm sure some of them went in, they probably found different places to nest on
they must
property.
Mason bees are native. So there's like, I've obviously placed it other places that they probably were like could find to live. So just because, if we released, what was it, like 200 bees or something?
Yeah, something like that.
You think your survival rate is, maybe 70%, and then you've got like half of those at least are males. So they basically just exist to mate. It kind of sucks to be a male mason bee.
That sounds awesome.
And, right? They just live and then die, and they're like nomadic. Like they just kind of like find a place to crash, basically. So it's the females that do all the, they find the home and they make the nest, so to speak. They make their little pollen loafs and they make their little cells for their babies. So it's feasible that because we didn't end up with a lot of tubes, right? I mean, we only had like probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, so most of these probably went out somewhere else because they don't range very far. So most of them probably went out in the property and
found other places.
Like a hollow reed from a flower or something, or wherever.
Now, will these bees, assuming they found new houses or new places to live, will they survive the winter? And they will? Okay.
Yep. Especially where they're native, like you would assume that we'll probably add next year and continue to do so for a while, because it can only, as long as you have food, as long as there's enough for them to eat to sustain them.
And they have access to the clay.
And they have access to clay, which obviously they do, so we moved their nest and kind of tried again with the leafcutter bees. And I actually had a lot of them. It was very chaotic. We actually have a video up on our Instagram of like these baby bees hatching in the middle of a thunderstorm. And it was right after I discovered all the ants. So we were like in a frantic, madness thing to try to move the house and get the leafcutter bees that were just emerging out. And it was just chaos. And you can hear the thunder rumbling in the background. And I'm like encouraging these tiny baby bees to come out of their cells. And a lot of them did, but I actually had probably almost half of them die, not even they didn't even make it out of the cells, which was very sad.
Oh.
But obviously some of them survived, because a few weeks later, I saw in the cells that Matt made, he made like trays that have channels cut in them. And when you line them up, it makes like a tube.
Yep.
And I realized I saw several of them in there, and I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And I realized one day that one of them was filled, and you could see, I think they use rose petals actually to create their cell. And I was very excited. It looks like something got into one of them, probably a bird. So lesson learned on that one. I'll put some mesh up next year, but I went over to look at them a little while ago, because there are several native bees that will use a bee hotel, essentially, which is what we made, that has different size reeds. And there were mason bee cells in there. So either we could have our second generation of our mason bees, or other native mason bees have found some homes there. So it's very encouraging.
And that's probably good for them genetically, right? To mix up, kind of, if they...
Yeah, I assume so.
Just adding to the population. Yeah. I mean, it's all pollinators are good. So it's very fascinating to kind of see. And next year we'll try again, and we'll have learned our lessons. I ended up putting Vaseline all over the edges of the house so that ants can't walk up there, just in case.
Yep.
Yeah. Internet is great for stuff like that. So.
And so an exciting summer with the bees, and hopefully some of them will make it over the winter. Now, I forgot to even say at the start of this, we should just tell people a little bit about where your farm is, Oak and Ash Farm and Distillery. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're in Belchertown. We are up on our own little microclimate, up on a hill on Allen Road or Allen Street, depending on if you're going off the post office version or the town version of the street name.
Whoever you want to talk to.
or which end of the street.
Or which end of the street you're on. It's very confusing. And we have a beautiful little 7.5 acre property up here on Allen Road Street place.
It is.
You want to call it.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And what I want people to know about this town we live in, Stomping Jen, Belchertown, Massachusetts, is it's a really kind of very rural town. Agriculture is important here. Animal husbandry is big here, right? And it's near the Quabbin Reservoir, Stomping Jen. What is that all about?
Some of it.
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Tell us what this Quabbin Reservoir is,
We're
Stomping
here to
Jen.
talk to Matt and Lindsay.
Yeah, but I'm
Not
curious
me about the Quabbin.
You're a co-host. You're involved in this. Tell us about the Quabbin, Stomping Jen.
Well, the Quabbin used to be 4 towns that they flooded to make the water source for Boston.
Yeah. And that's pretty close to your property, right, Lindsay and Matt?
Yeah, it's very close, actually.
Now,
and kind of on a side note, when and if we get the distillery up and running, we had plans to.
There'll be some nods to that.
There'll definitely be some nods to that. Yeah.
Okay.
We tend to like our history around here. We're a little bit of history buffs, especially Matt. So there'll be some nods to the Quabbin in the names of our products.
Okay, so the spring was about getting these bees and getting those things going. What else happened over the summer? We're recording this Stomping Jen, fall of 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. So, can you tell us what else was going on the farm over the summer?
Yeah, so obviously we got a couple different enterprises we've been trying to work on up here, and I think this year we kind of just channeled them down and got to what we need to do now and what we need to do later, and really classified those with what needs to happen immediately and what's the end goal and where we're going to go. So basically
we've done a pivot, basically, in what you call in business. We've done like a hard pivot.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of figured out we want to do some more market gardening, get into some more annual crops and things like that, just to establish ourselves more as a farm and offer what we can to the community. So realized that the market garden was going to be our priority this year, and I cleared a bunch of land from there, and we milled up a bunch of the timbers that we needed to do a structure down there. So that's ready to rip. Poured a concrete slab for that structure. So that'll eventually be where we keep a lot of our garden tools. It'll be where we have a wash and pack station to prep those things, and possibly where we'll have a cooler or whatever to display those before they go out to our customers. So we got all that land cleared, and that's still going on right now, but we've been stone walling the past couple of days and just taking all the stones that we pulled out of there and making a nice border around there. We
have a lovely rock garden. I mean, a lovely rock farm up here. We're really, really good at producing rocks. So like literally every time we're like, I don't know if we're going to have enough rocks for another rock wall. We're like, oh yeah, we do. So
just drag your feet and you'll pick up another one.
Yeah. Like they like rain from the sky. Like we're just swimming in rocks over here.
Now you mentioned you're pivoting. Could you tell us a little bit about why you're pivoting? What kind of drove that decision to pivot and maybe move in a slightly different direction?
Well, when we bought the property up here, we knew like 7.5 acres is a lot of land, but to most people, especially involved in agriculture, that's nothing. And we've actually been the question has been posed, like, why would you bother? Well, because that's what we want to do with it. We don't want to have 7.5 acres to just look at it. We wanted it to work for us, but we wanted to make sure that when you have a land that small, it needs to have a purpose. So we initially, when we built our house, we were like, okay, well, what is the purpose of the farm? Because we're not going to just clear cut 7.5 acres and just like put in some corn and then figure it out from there. That's ridiculous. So our initial approach was like, okay, what do we want to make? What do we want the end result to be? And so we landed on craft distilling. So we were like, okay, this is great. Like, we'll make steps to like move towards making, producing schnapps, things we can use in schnapps, like put in an orchard and put in lots of berry bushes. We have like tons of raspberries in an orchard. And we took a course in it. And that was our plan. You know, at the end of our course, our instructor was like, oh, you're great. You know, you're all set. You can have like a small craft micro distillery. It's going to be awesome. And then we just hit barrier after barrier after barrier after barrier. And it's just been such a hard battle. And really, I think what we've come down to realize is that the farm needs to come before the distillery. It's, you know, the purpose of the farm initially was to supply the distillery. And now it's going to kind of be, the distillery it's still that symbiotic relationship. Like farm distilling has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just a natural sort of byproduct of like when you have an excess of, a fruit, you distill it. It's still done in Germany that way. It's still done a lot of places that way. But we unfortunately are dealing with a lot of like laws and misinformation that really prohibit us from doing it on that level. So we realized the farm needs a really clear-cut plan for the entire property. And that's something that's taken us 5 years to figure out. And now we're really there. So the distillery is still part of the plan, but it's just sort of going to be like a natural byproduct of once we are up and running and we have much more production, we have an actual barn. We're then looking to reapproach it and say, okay, look, we're just going to do, production up here on a small scale. We still want to make like a beautiful artisanal craft spirit, but the farm needs to come first, and we need to kind of nail that down before we focus on the distillery.
Yeah, I think part of it too was what can we do now with less overhead and something that's a more sure venture, and then there's more channels too, because like I don't know if you're familiar with the laws in this state, but like you can sell beer or wine or cider at a farmer's market, but you can't sell distilled spirits. So
you can't sell beer either.
Oh, you can't.
You can sell wine and you can sell cider because cider falls under winemaking. And you also, and this is a thing we get asked about a million times. People say, well, why don't you just start distilling? It is illegal. You can't distill until you have a license to distill, and you can't have a license to distill until you have a facility to license. So it's kind of you have to put the cart before the horse. And
you need some money.
Very confusing.
Right.
And lots and lots and lots of money. Right. And
you need a revenue source. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're bootstrapping, and we're using the farm as a means to an end to establish ourselves, get our clientele, get our business basis up. And this is also, it's a second career for both of us too. Yeah. We're still working our 9 to 5, so to speak. So, and that's going to be the way it's going to have to be for a while anyway, before we take this on as a full-time venture. So, I think, the farm, that's something we've always wanted to do. We already garden for ourselves. We already produce fruits and veggies for ourselves. So why not expand what we're doing here where we can share that with other people, and other people can have that experience and enjoy that as well.
Yeah. And we can, give the farm a purpose and share what we know. It's sharing everything, really. It's, a farm share in every sense of the word. We're sharing everything we're going to be producing, as well as every knowledge. When we make videos on stuff, it's not like, oh, look at me, I'm so smart and I know things.
I'm telling my knowledge.
I'm telling my knowledge. It's like, hey, we tried this and this is what we learned. Like, we're sharing it with you because, we couldn't find this information before. So here you go. This is what we learned.
Yeah. Or, part of it too, with when Lindsey started saying, hey, we should make videos, I was like, I don't want to be that guy there showing you, self-important on there and on YouTube. But then after a while, I was like, I like watching YouTube videos. Maybe somebody would like to see maybe somebody has this question and this will answer that, or they'd see me do it and go, hey, we could do that too. That didn't seem that hard. You know?
Yeah, I will watch a YouTube video on almost anything if it teaches me something that I'm even remotely interested in. I've got a comment on something that I'm still hung up on. I cannot move on until I make a comment on this. I am flabbergasted that they consider cider making
under wine
closer to wine. Having brewed beer and brewed cider in the past, they are nearly identical processes.
Yep.
It's because of the fruit.
It's the fruit. It comes down. It's one of those archaic, like old blue law. Like there's literally no reason that the law exists. And the other thing that holds us up greatly, in terms of being successful as a craft distillery, is we cannot have an off-site tasting room. Meaning, I can't do what is common practice in Vermont. Which, if you go to a farmer's market in Vermont, we went to.
We took our course in Vermont. That's why a lot of knowledge base is about Vermont. And it's our neighbor here.
It's our neighbor, and like we've been to a farmer's market. You can't throw a small stick without hitting a craft distillery booth at a farmer's market. It's their bread and butter. Most places are so rural, you can't sell off site. And then they'll also have, Mad River has a tasting room off site. We've been to Mad River's distillery. It is literally as rural as you can possibly get. And
it's a wild ass mountain.
It is a wild ass mountain road to get up there. It's a little terrifying in a bus.
And that's a beer maker, Wild River?
Nope, this is a distillery.
Oh,
Mad River Distillery.
Oh.
Mad River Distillery. They produce whiskey.
Rum whiskey. And
they're like in Cambridge or no? I'm getting them.
No,
they're in Vermont.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So they're in rural Vermont. They have this. I mean, it's a beautiful distillery, but like nobody's going up there. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. But they have an off-site tasting room that essentially operates like a bar in downtown Burlington. Nice. Which is how they make their money. Mm-hmm. Which, if we could do here, that's how we would make our money. And I'd have no problem just sort of producing up here and selling off site. We're zoned residential, which has been a huge part of our issue. They don't want people coming up here. And I get it. I don't want 1 million people up here too. So if I could just operate a tasting room off site, it would be no issue at all. And we'd already probably be in business on that end. But if I can't have people taste what they're about to spend $30-something on, I'm kind of dead in the water. So it's something that really needs to be changed, like seriously, but it's also, I know there's a lot going on in the state right now that is much bigger. So that will be fish to fry later on. And, a few years when things quiet down and we can kind of hit this with all we have. And I'm totally fine with, getting the information out there and trying to help change laws. I don't know much about law, but I can certainly, I think, make a good case for it because it's just silly. There's literally no reason for it. It's only hurting small businesses.
Now, the new farm, or kind of the pivoted reinvention of the farm, is going to focus on sustainable farming practices. I think there could be some people listening to this who may not even know what that means. Could you talk a little bit about what that concept is?
Yes.
So sustainable ag is basically saying we're going to meet the needs of our food, our textiles, all those industries without compromise for today's generation, without compromising those needs of the next generation. So it's basically leaving things as good as they are without depleting them to a point where the next generation can't carry on. So some of that's sustainable up here, and then we can take it one step further. Another is regenerative ag, which is leaving things better than they are now through building soil, through good practices and water management. So make sure your runoff's not compromising water quality in the area, whether it be groundwater or underground water, so just it's about managing a number of different systems to make things better.
It's about maintaining or adding to, if you're talking regenerative, one of the biggest issues with current agricultural processes is that it is removing permaculture, which is, trees, things that are there permanently, that are adding oxygen to the air, it's wiping that out. You often are wiping out the fertility of the soil over several, rotations of a crop or generations of a farm. And it's replacing them with annual crops that is depleting the soil, and it's not adding anything to the atmosphere. So by shifting the focus to permaculture, which is a permaculture and polyculture. So permaculture means the cultivation of permanent crops. So trees, shrubs, things that are there, obviously not permanently, nothing is permanent, but for a much longer period of time. Polyculture is mixing crops. So we can kind of go on and on about this. Like our new motto is, do you have time to talk about restorative agriculture today? We're basically become those people like preaching the gospel of like regenerative agriculture. But so polyculture is just mixing crops, because that's how things would grow normally in the wild. If you look at a field of wildflowers, it's not rows and rows and rows of one thing. It's a mixture of things, so that anytime you have an issue with a pest or a disease or something, it can't make that leap as easily. So if you have a small orchard of an acre and you have 30 apple trees, and a disease gets into your orchard, well, it's easily going to just jump from tree to tree to tree to tree to tree.
Right.
If you have an apple tree, and then you have a Juneberry, and then you have a pear tree, and then you have an ash tree, like just whatever it is, and you've mixed it up.
It's like socially distancing your plants.
Yes.
Yeah. So you take a walk in any woods here, and the predominant species might be oak or pine or whatever it is, but the entire place, unless it's plantation planted, is not the same species. Right. So
now something. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm just saying a lot of those pests, like Lindsey said, can't easily make the jump to the next one. So a lot of those problems just stop. If it's all monoculture, all the same species of cultivar,
it'll get wiped out.
They can easily just jump tree to tree to tree, and next thing you know, the whole plantation's dead. I mean, there's nowhere on earth where you can go except for like one place it might be like Pakistan or Mongolia, where there's that naturally occurring monoculture orchard naturally occurring in what we say is an orchard. An orchard is as we see it in the Northeast here, where there's all these apple trees row on row, is a human created thing, obviously. So
yeah, and something tells me, and I know nothing about farming, something tells me an approach like this would require less chemical intervention, like fertilizers, and obviously, we were talking about like plant pathogens, and maybe even cut down on the need for something like insecticides. Something tells me this, although I don't know for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's taking organic farming like 10 steps further, because it's saying like, yeah, you're organic farming in that you're not using pesticides, but this is like, you don't need to, and you're also adding to the health of the soil and the health of the environment overall.
Well, the thing with organic too, so you still need your pest mitigation protocols for organic. It's just using things that are less, they're not straight up chemicals.
Right.
So you might be using different types of clay that you're spraying, or you're using copper or whatever. Those are all things that are organic, whatever. There's different things that are accepted as organic practices either way.
Yep. But you still need to use something to manage pests, and like you're still using a pesticide of some kind. They're considered less harmful, and usually they're not man-made.
But just like germs, over time, there's certain parts of those pests that develop immunity to it, and they're not affected by it, and obviously they're going to pass on that gene. So over time, you're building
super pests.
Yeah, you are. They have resistance to that. So at some point, those things aren't going to work. So what can we do to change this and actually mimic nature to make it work in our benefit?
Where we can still like produce crops and feed ourselves, but like we're not harming the environment in doing so. And just so you know, this is like what we sit around and talk about at night, because we're that level of farm geek now that we just like sit around and have like philosophical conversations about farming.
That's awesome.
Now, in kind of our pre-show correspondence, one of the other things you told me about was this, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, a silvopasture system.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what that is and how you envision that working on the farm this spring?
So there's different practices in sustainable agriculture that are like windbreaks, alley cropping, silvopasture, riparian buffers, and agroforestry. So those are five things that are accepted practices towards making farming better. And silvopastures basically just having areas where you're involving livestock within that
alley crop.
Yeah, within that system. So we're going to do the market garden as our main focus, where it's going to be veggies and,
things you're used to, mostly annual crops like lettuces and
root vegetables, anything that's quick growing that we can turn around and get out to our people real quick and do that repeatedly over the season. And
a note on that, we are using a no-dig system, which means you're feeding the soil. So like we won't be rotating crops. And even though we'll be succession planting, planting something, and then as soon as it comes out, we're planting something else.
We're not plowing, we're not tilling.
Right. We're not disturbing the soil. We're allowing like the good natural bacteria, and we're feeding the soil constantly with layers of compost. So it's also another way to like, annual crops are not as good as permanent crops, but if you're going to have annual crops, this is definitely like the most sustainable way to do it, and like the best way to do it responsibly, basically.
So with the silvopasture system, there's a section up back about an acre that we're gonna clear some of that away, and we're gonna put in tree crops or shrub crops. So it's gonna be rose, and there will be like apple.
It's the polyculture we were talking about.
I'm putting bayberry in there because bayberry is a nitrogen fixer. So if I go in there and I cut some of the bayberry shoots, it puts nitrogen back in the soil, which will feed the crops next to it. So I really don't care about the bayberries, but by putting those in there, and I can go in and prune those, they'll put inputs that will benefit the other plants by doing that. And I won't have to use fossil fuel based fertilizers, which is when you buy a bag of fertilizer for your lawn, it's a fossil fuel based fertilizer.
Yeah,
that's how it was produced. So anyway, we'll have these rows of trees, and then we'll have a pasture grass area in between, and then there's going to be a row of there's different polycultures. We're going to do blueberries and
Christmas trees
together, because we're going to put infant blueberries in. By the time they get to be full-size blueberry plants and produce them very well, the Christmas trees are ready to take out. So the Christmas trees, we cut them off. That's something everybody loves.
They take a really long time to grow.
Yeah, you're talking 8 to 10 years or whatever. So by the time those cut out, now we get more space for the blueberries. And then through that middle row, I wish I could just like
draw
a video right now.
Yeah, can we just do a video? Can you turn
Zoom
voice into video?
But anyway, so that was part of a drawing Lindsey put up on her Instagram too the other day. It was just my rough sketch to try to figure out how many plants we need. So there's going to be a raspberry row too, and then it will be another row of pasture, and then a tree crop. Next one won't have apple, will have pear instead. So we're trying to vary things.
We're varying crops as much as we can.
But in between on these grass stretches, we're going to run chicken tractors with pastured poultry.
What the heck is a chicken tractor?
So a chicken tractor.
I've never seen a chicken tractor. Oh, Google it, girl.
It's basically a mobile chicken coop and chicken run all in one. We have, so I'd love to do free range up here. We get birds.
We have like a resident fox and like bears and.
I got
hawks
and peregrine falcons that come here in the spring. So with all
we'd be feeding all the wildlife is what we'd be doing.
Yeah, it's just like everybody loves chicken.
Everybody loves chicken.
So I remember when we had you guys on here last time, You were adamant about not having any kind of
What,
animals.
Sean?
Now you're talking about a chicken tractor.
They pivoted, Stomping Jen.
Okay.
We pivoted.
How dare you?
All right.
Now, let me say that was definitely more
short term.
Chickens are short term, and that was definitely more me than Matt. I worked on a farm that had animals, and I was just like, I don't need that complication in my life. But when you hear the gospel of regenerative agriculture, one of the really important things, and I'm going to have Matt cite this person because he knows more about him, but he's if anybody's interested in this, he's a great person to check out.
Yes, check out
Connecticut. The guy in Connecticut.
Oh, John Suskovich.
John Suskovich. He does amazing YouTube videos.
Channel, yeah. He breaks down the pasture poultry game all the way. So the guy actually, I'll check it out. But so he's a partner in a brewery. He's down in
he's so smart.
Like the western edge of Connecticut. So he does a brewery with other people. He's got a farm he does stuff on, and he's big in the pasture poultry game. So he does chickens all out of pasture, and if we all eat chicken, but we want to eat good chicken, right? Responsible chicken.
Yep. Now, do the chickens? Sorry.
So around here we got Misty Knoll. You probably seen them in the grocery store. They're big into that.
Yep. That's the brand, Misty Knoll.
That's a chicken.
Yep.
Misty Knoll Farm.
That's not his brand. That's just one that's around here.
No, I'm just saying for us around here, you've probably seen that. They're pasture poultry, so we know. Hey, pasture, it's better. It might not be necessarily cage free, but like acceptable practices in barn farming are like if a bird has 2 square feet to range in, he's good.
I was going to say, compared to the nightmare of industrial chicken, I mean, a chicken tractor is like living in Malibu for a chicken. That's a great deal.
Yes. So the benefit of that is, so we have them in there. It's a mobile chicken pen. They have an area to roost. They get their grain supplement in there. Their water's in there. And what are they on top of? They're on top of pasture. So chickens are omnivores. They go around, root insects out. They'll eat a little bit of the grass.
Yep.
And every day,
right?
Yep, and
they probably help with your pest management, right?
I like your sound effects.
Sorry, we're talking about chickens. I had to.
Yeah, of
course. Yeah, you have to. You have to.
It's not often you can pull that out.
No, I don't.
Part of daily chores with giving them feed or water. You move this chicken tractor one full length ahead every day, so every day they have a fresh pasture site.
Right. So they're not like literally sitting in their own like filth in this tiny pen. They're in this same pen, but it's moving. It's like a mobile home. That's actually mobile, or like an RV where they're having constantly new pasture to graze.
They get to view the country from
the
luxury RV, their mobile chicken tractor. I love it.
They're glamping. They're actually glamping.
I love it.
Now, what do we get in return? They scratch up the soil. They're going to eat some of the pest bugs, and then they're actually pooping all over the place, which is just giving me
glorious. You're actually keeping the fertility of your soil on the soil. Like, one of the big things, Matt, like a big point Matt made to me is like, you do see a lot of farms and they get sort of farm tax credit by selling hay because they're basically like mailing it in at that point. They're like, oh, whatever, I have this farmland and to keep it as a farm, I'm just going to sell my hay. Every time you do that, you're actually shipping the fertility of your soil off your land. So when you cut the grass, and you leave it on the grass to decompose, you're just making sure that any of the nitrogen and all that good stuff gets back into the soil. But when you're constantly just shipping it off, you're selling it away. You're selling the fertility of your land away. So by having, people will make the argument, and I'm not going to get into if you want to be a vegan or a vegetarian, I totally understand it. I've considered it myself. But there's really nothing wrong with eating pastured animals if it's done in this manner where they're literally just there as a symbiotic relationship feeding the soil and you get to eat them. Like, it's actually a really great system, and it's how farming should be done.
You basically you're gonna raise them so they have one bad day in their lifetime.
Right.
They have a glory. They get to do all the foraging they want. They get to eat everything they want. They're getting tons of fresh air and sunlight. And then, when their life is over, they just have a quick bad life or a quick bad day, and that's it. And
Now,
it's all over for them.
Speaking of that one bad day, will Matt or Lindsey, will you be the one with the axe in the hand and the stump?
Jesus, no.
Okay.
No, so actually what we're gonna do is we'll pack them up, and I got a person in the local area that's a USDA certified slaughterhouse. They'll take care of all that and do it in a manner that is ready to go straight to market.
Yep.
There's a local person, or is it like far away? Because that's one of the things that I've talked with local farmers about, is that there's not a lot of meat processing in the area.
I mean, when I say local, that's a relative term.
Yeah.
At least the person I've been referred to is like up on the Route 2 corridor. So we're talking like 45 minutes. So it's not super local, but
I
mean, that's local-ish.
Yeah.
I can roll up and have the chickens in their pen or whatever, and then they take care of it all, soup to nuts there. And at least it's all done in a manner too that's under the controls of that. So for market, I think again, when we get back to legal things, I can process my own poultry here, but I'm not. I'd have to set up an actual slaughterhouse here to do it.
And that's not, we're already wearing a million hats. That's not one more thing we need to add on to our plate of we can't. It's also, I can't imagine the cost associated with something like that.
Oh, I could only imagine. Yeah.
You're better off letting somebody else do it properly.
Will you have assorted chickens, or like is there
a breed of chicken?
Yeah.
Do you have?
So
that's a math question.
So there's a couple different breeds. Like when you get your standard chicken from Purdue or whatever you get, it's usually a Cornish cross, which is the white bird, has big plump breasts, and it's basically what Americans have come to expect out of a chicken.
Is that that I feel like we're about to hear? That's not what a real chicken is like. That's some kind of monstrosity that corporations have bred.
No.
Well, it's all dependent on, obviously, if you raise it in a certain way, it's going to be even more. But they're generally poor foragers. So they're going to eat more grain. I mean, they're going to rely more on the grain supplement that you give them.
Lazy chickens.
Lazy chickens.
Yep. So
the big boobs.
Juicy.
Red Ranger is a variety I've been looking at, and also what we look at too is those over time these chicken breeds have been bred to.
Sorry, that was our cat.
That was your cat, right? That wasn't a sound effect, people.
That wasn't a sound.
That was not a sound effect. That was not a poorly placed sound effect. That was literally our cat.
No, so these chickens have been bred to have a shorter lifespan, but they grow very fast. So they are economical. The longer you keep the bird around, the more labor is associated, the more feeds associated. So I think the next step in it would be, before the heritage breeds, would be Red Ranger as a chicken variety, which actually has a little smaller breast, has a different structure to it, probably bigger legs on, it's a better forager, and you get a little more chicken flavor, a little more wild chicken. I don't know, wild chicken's the term for it. I don't want to say gamey, but
no, it's different. It's definitely different.
We had a poultry CSA once,
and those chickens were freaking delicious.
They were. They had like no meat on them, though.
Well, that was
which is par for the course. It was how it was explained.
And we've had that conversation before. I mean, you have to tamper your expectations. Right. This is not Purdue chicken you're getting out of the grocery store. This is like real food, and it's probably going to be different than what you're used to. It's not going to have as much meat on its bones, and it's going to taste a little different, but like that is just something you have to come to expect when you're, dealing with us or anybody else. And like anything, you can adapt. It's still chicken.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing as a consumer you can see is when you delve into the pork industry. So, hey, pork, the other white meat.
Huge.
Oh my God.
Yeah, when you go to the grocery store and you look at pork, the other white meat, and it's just like pale, pink.
Ugh.
It's not even pink; it's like beige.
Yeah, it's like, but then when you go to you get a real farm raised pig that's been allowed to exercise and root around a pasture or go through the woods or whatever and eat nuts. Now you get like this red meat that's just,
it's delicious.
Yeah,
it is. It's amazing. It's so much better. I mean, you have the pigs that people pay, like Iberico ham. I know paid, like we saw it in New York City. So we're actually super fun side note. We're actually trained charcuterians.
What?
Yep. Because why wouldn't we be? In another life, one of the first things we considered was opening our own charcuterie shop, or our own like cured meat place where we'd have delicious cured meats and cheeses. And then we found out that that's, again, in this country, we're so prudish about stuff like that you basically have to have like a butchery and you have to have like all these crazy special licenses and you can't do a lot of the things. But we did take a course at the French Culinary Institute, or the International Culinary Institute in New York. And we have our certification and we are trained charcuterians. And Iberico ham can go for upwards of $100 a pound. And you've got these heritage breeds of pigs that are really just foraging and living on acorns. And it's amazing. It is amazing how much better they taste. And even just different breeds of pig have, and this is my geeky farm knowledge coming out here. There's hundreds of varieties of pig, and everything from like size and shape to, some are better or produce more for what you want for bacon, whereas others have larger legs. Like it's, they're as varied as people are practically. Yeah. So that gets like crazy varied, but it's also, pigs can definitely be a part of silvo pasture and alley cropping. But it's definitely on a larger scale. Not really something for us.
Eventually they may work into the system.
They may work into our system.
In a very small role.
We might have like a pig or two.
You guys crack me up.
Are you going to have chickens? Are you going to have any?
I'd like to do turkeys, but we got to try with chickens first.
Poultry, yes. I mean, maybe we'll leave it there for now.
How about
we
any?
Are at our very heart, we are, Irish Scotch people, and both of us are just like, I really just would like to have some sheep just so we can look out at them. Like, I don't want to do anything with them. If somebody wants to harvest their wool, that's fine. But I just want to look out and see sheep.
What about a guard creature like a llama or a alpaca to guard your chickens? I think you should get one.
I don't think they really guard sheep. The reason that works with sheep is they actually see themselves as part of the herd.
Geese are known for being very aggressive.
Geese will protect chickens like whoa. And let me tell you something. The farm I used to work at had a massive aviary, and geese are some ruthless MFers. They don't. You don't mess around with a goose.
I think a goose or two might take care of a fox.
We need a gaggle of geese.
Well,
you guys are just gonna have like a circus soon, just like a whole full barnyard.
Well, there's actually a lot of people in the regenerative agriculture circle that talk about, hey, as far as poultry goes, geese, you drive around here, you see Canada geese eating soccer fields and everything, right?
Yes.
So they're really good at grazing. They're really efficient at eating grass, but
they're not very marketable.
No, that's the thing. It's
nobody wants it.
They're actually really good at eating grass, and you get a bigger structure on them. But that's just not.
It's not a thing we're used to eating. It's the same thing. We're looking to try to convert people over to eating hazelnuts and chestnuts. And I believe this is a Mark Shepard quote that chestnuts are nutritionally the same as brown rice. Yep. So if you could just sort of switch yourself to eating that, but that's a hard sell for a lot of people. Actually,
we're both very avid cooks, but I don't really have any chestnut recipes.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
Roasted over the open fire.
I was going to say,
I made a chestnut stuffing once.
I was going to say, chestnuts have they've been immortalized in that song.
Yeah,
it's roasting,
and that's probably the only thing
such a nice voice.
Yes, beautiful. A baby angel.
So you've talked a little bit about how these practices, polyculture, permaculture, silvo pasture systems, are going to be the farming of the future. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why and why we maybe even need it to be the farming of the future?
So we kind of had a nod to it earlier. If you're looking at like, let's travel to the Midwest where it's all corn fields and soybeans, and you plant the same thing every year, and they're taking the same nutrients. So the same plants take the same nutrients out of soil, and you're not rotating those crops. Well, now you got to add inputs, and these inputs come in, like I said, in the means of fertilizer. So it's a fossil fuel based fertilizer, which you're spreading on there, and then you got erosion you're dealing with, and we think about erosion as being just water washing over the soil, but different places too. We were in a real dry spell this year here, so erosion comes in the form of wind as well too. Mm-hmm. So washing the wind, the active wind blowing the soil away. And when you think about corn, when you drive through Hadley and you see these fields, and the corn is not, it might be Memorial Day or into June before the corn's even ankle high. So that field is left barren with nothing to anchor it. And it's being oxidized by the sun for all that time and exposed to the wind. You're losing soil to the wind the whole time. Yeah. So your soil is blown away. The topsoil that took millennia to, I don't even know how long it would take to create topsoil around here. You're thinking about decomposing leaves right before it's stripped of trees.
Mm-hmm. Long time.
Yeah, so it takes a long time, and it takes a lot less time to lose that soil to erosion, whether it be wind or surface erosion. So a lot of that is just what we're talking about, is trying to mitigate that and actually build the soil.
Yep. And the godfather, I should point this out because he deserves all the nods in the world, the godfather of the no-dig method, and his motto is feed your soil, is Charles Dowding. He's this lovely Englishman who is literally like, he has forgotten more about like feeding your soil than like I'll ever know. And he's just done insane amounts of research, and he's been doing it in practice for, I think, like 20 years. And go find him on Instagram or online. He has tons of books, and it's amazing, like the things that he's learned. And he's not a scientist, but he's just a smart person who's just figured out what works. And he is all about feeding the soil, and it's really taking off. It's become a very common gardening practice, especially in the UK where he's based, and it's starting to get, take notch over here because it just makes sense, especially on a small scale. Like if you're going to have a garden at home, you should be doing no dig. You should be feeding your soil. It makes so much sense. You don't weed at all.
It's actually lazy gardening.
It is. It's totally lazy gardening. I literally weeded our garden once. It took me 2 hours, and it was like I hadn't weeded since we put crops in, like since we put the compost down in the spring.
That was year 2 of this garden.
Yeah.
Anyway.
How do we get people to support these methods? I mean, the thing I think about, and the thing that keeps me up at night, right, is when, God forbid, we have something, like another civil war in this country or whatever happens, and the industrialized farming system collapses, and we can't get food distributed across this country. I mean, the solution through that, in my mind, are these kind of local farms doing exactly what you're starting to do, and what others may be doing now. Regional food, sustainable regional food production seems to me to be the only security we have against like industrialized food insecurity. And how do we get people to care about this?
So basically, you fed right into right where I wanted you to be, Brad. So
he wants to be patted on the back. He's giving me the biggest grin right now.
So there's this guy, and it's called New Forest Farm, and it's in Wisconsin, I believe. And he's actually a Massachusetts native, Mark Shepard. And I stumbled upon him in my research and YouTube, binging, and I've been reading his book, Restoration Agriculture. And this is a guy that's actually out there doing this. And a lot of what he talks about is saying any society that has relied on annual crops, so we're talking about just things that we get to plant seeds every year, and do that man-made intervention to that to make the system continue, they have failed. So when you look at all Mesopotamia or all these places that are ancient civilizations, they've relied on, you could probably even say Rome or whatever, but they've relied on annual crops as their food sources. They have come to a point where there's a collapse and failure and something happens. So if we continue down this road, and when I was talking about, the corn and soybeans and all these things, well, you start with the breadbasket of America, and we have, hey, it's great soil or whatever. And over time, we're losing a lot of this too. Like I said, the erosion, and we're depleting the soil, and we're not putting anything back because you take all this corn off there and you don't have a cover crop or nothing's given back to the soil. So what do? We just keep pumping more fertilizer on there. It's going to be okay. Let's put more fertilizer on there. And hey, we don't want to weed. We're just going to spray glyphosate all over the soil. Well, that's going to kill the corn. Okay, so we just genetically modified this corn seed so it can be resilient to glyphosate. Well, over time, we're altering that. We're altering natural systems, and we all know how that kind of ends up. So I think part of this, and it all depends on who you're listening to and who you're reading and who you believe in or whatever. But check Mark Shepard out. Really cool. A lot of good ideas. Some of it's far-fetched.
So you were talking about industrialized farming, and I don't want to misquote, and it's from a talk, but if you look at, there's, 37%?
So like 38% of the Earth's land mass is involved in agriculture. And according to certain studies, if we were to build that soil organic matter by just 2% over that 38% of land mass, we would set back carbon emissions to
pre-industrial revolution levels. Like we could literally go backwards in time with what we're doing to the environment if we could just change.
And how's that work? It's called carbon sequestration. So when you make the soil better and the plants more efficient at what they do, they suck more carbon out of the atmosphere. Wow. So obviously, perennial plants, big trees, things like that, suck more carbon in. They process it more than a tomato plant does in your garden.
Right, and they hold on to it year after year because they stay alive.
Yeah, exactly. So they break it down, and it's like when you go out and I take my chance on, I go out and cut a tree down. As I do that, carbon is released into the atmosphere.
Right.
But when you look at that and you say, "Holy crap!" By just building the soil by 2%, we can set this back to the 1700s. Like, I'm sorry, but you can tell me all you want about electric cars and the amount of mining for materials that has to go into creating an electric car battery, but
not to mention how you're going to recycle it and things like that. Like this is
the heavy metals involved in that. Like I think we can look at something more attainable as just let's go build some soil.
And we all need food, and so this is something that we could do on a huge scale. Never mind even just 2%, right? I mean, we could go beyond that if we just put our minds to this.
If we put our minds to it, and if we're just willing to change the way we eat, and I mean, you
don't have to completely alter your diet. Yeah. Like part of the things is, so one of the things I mentioned when I was talking about the 5 sustainable practices, one of them was alley cropping. So that's something that you could plant trees that are going to mitigate some of this, and then still have your annual crops, the things we're used to eat in between there.
Yeah.
And you're getting the benefit of the trees that are going to sequester all that carbon and provide other things for that. But, there's like just about varying the systems. You don't need to go and have miles and miles of one crop.
It's about changing people. It's about like individual people, though, changing, like, okay, recognizing that this is an issue and saying, I'm not going to commit to completely change my diet, and I'm not going to become a hunter gatherer. Like, it's just not going to, that's ridiculous. We can't do that.
No.
But you can say, you know what, instead of eating this, I'm going to try to a couple times a week add one of these things that's a little more sustainable back into my diet. And that, like, over time, that will make a difference. Like, if everybody does that and everybody starts to just make a little tiny shifts in what they do, whether it's buying pastured poultry, that's using, or just buying crops that are done in a sustainable way or a responsible way, or even just saying, like, hey, instead of brown rice, I'm going to try chestnuts just like one time a week.
Yeah.
See how that is. Like, something as little as that will make a big difference over time.
And people can make that leap in a small way by supporting a farm like yours once it's up and running, by joining what's called a CSA, Stomping General.
Yep.
What does that mean, CSA?
Community shared agriculture?
Right. It's like you...
Is that right?
Yeah, you pay...
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
Yeah, you pay like a annual subscription to the farm, and you get product from them, and you're going to be offering one of these. It's in the near future, right? This is part of the pivot.
This is part of the pivot. I mean, it kind of comes back to, so we're going to be doing this thing that we're really excited about, and if 10 people are excited about it, that's great. We're going to be doing what we call a farmstead style CSA. So it's going to be different than what most people are used to. What that means is, so like a regular share, you're
like
basically saying,
it's just for us, it's a homestead, but we want to give it to other people. So we're going to call it a farmstead.
I've never heard that word before. You should trademark that, farmstead CSA?
I don't think we had. Yeah, somebody used it somewhere. We stole it from somewhere. I don't know where we stole it from, but we stole it. So with a regular CSA, you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to support you as a farmer, and I know that you have expenses before the season starts. So I'm going to give you some money up front so that you can grow the crops. And in return, you're going to share those crops with me. And it's actually going to save me money because it will be cheaper over time. So that's how like a regular share works. How ours is going to work is, kind of the name of the game for us is diversity. We have several different zones basically that we have set up all over the farm that are going to be producing different things. So instead of saying, hey, here's your lettuce and carrots and cucumbers, like have a nice day, we have the market garden down front that will supply mostly annual crops, things you're used to, like lettuces and carrots and cucumbers. And then it also means you're going to get a portion of every single thing that we produce on the farm throughout the year. It also means, because we are really, our big focus of ours is education, and we're learning things as we go here. We want people to be a big part of that. So every time we're doing something on the farm, whether it's boiling maple syrup or drying herbs or making a wreath or doing a timber frame or whatever it is, we will be including our CSA members in that process. It's also something we want to open up to the public and sell, tickets for eventually, because we want people to be learning the things that we're learning as well. We want to be able to share that knowledge with other people. So what that's also going to mean is, during the summer, it's going to look like our traditional CSA where you'll get mostly annual crops, short-term things. We have raspberries up here that do really well. So get some raspberries. Hopefully our peaches don't die next year and you get peaches. And then as the year progresses, it's going to take a shift. So you'll get, maybe one basket or a month or, every once a season. And in the winter, it'll be more like you'll get a carved wooden spoon that Matt made and some pastured poultry, some dried herbs, a Christmas tree or winter greenery. And every season we're going to be doing thank you dinners and just sharing the bounty of what we have. And it's also going to help show people what you can do with what we're producing on the farm. So it'll help show you what you can do with chestnuts and hazelnuts as we go forward.
And I need to tell, and I just need to tell
thing.
people who are listening to this, who are within distance of your property. These thank you dinners have got me intrigued, because I've seen the Instagram videos of Lindsey and Matt's cooking.
They're going to get better.
And I'm thinking back to this one of a pot roast.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to eat that thing, so I would be in just for these thank you dinners.
Yes.
And I'm
kind of dinner CSA.
Yeah,
I want some biscuits.
And Stomping Jen, Stomping Jen will tell you, if I am nothing, I'm a romantic, and the idea of sitting down at a farm table on a crisp fall day and enjoying a pot roast, just tickles my fancy, Stomping Jen. No,
I'm one that was cooked over a fire, I'm sure.
Yeah, no.
So the plan is we want it to be local. We want you to live within an adjoining town. You shouldn't travel 45 minutes to come here, because that's not truly local then.
No.
And you should support somebody else out there. Maybe there's not somebody else doing that. I'm not going to fire you from that, but the people we want to be in this CSA group, we want them to be part of our community and invested here, and to share this with them and come up here and enjoy this property for what we're trying to make it.
And what it comes down to too is, like, at the end of the day, like, we just like to feed people. Like, that brings us joy, and we like to be around people. And like, I have a background in events, and so of course I'm always going to be like, I can make it beautiful, and I'm going to set the table, and there'll be all these things, and like, I just want people to be happy. I want to like look down a table at a bunch of people like truly enjoying something that we produced up here and like made for them. And like, that's all I want. Like, I just want people to be happy.
And obviously some of this excess too. So we'll have the CSA members get whatever, and then we're going to still offload the other produce we have.
Sounds so terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We will share the things that we have.
We're still going to market it in the means that are typical. If we have different avenues to sell it, then we're still going to do that too. And you won't have to be a CSA member to buy produce from us or buy a chicken from us, but the focus is going to be on providing most of this experience to the CSA people.
Yeah, I really like this education aspect of it. I think people could learn so much from this. Even if it was just, once you have the silvoculture system set up, even just like a morning farm tour or something like that. Yeah. That could be so informative to people.
Well, so to do it on the scale we're doing it up here, we're really calling this a case study, because what we're actually doing on our property is kind of replacing forest with different forest that we can actually, that we can get product from, that we can actually produce food from. So really, when it turns from sustainable to regenerative is when you take, say, like an old farm that has like barren fields in it that isn't being used, and converting it back into forest to put in these things, to put in these systems.
It will be a mix of forest and pasture or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can be a case study, and I mean, there are a million agriculture schools around here. If we can say, hey, come see what we're doing here. This is how you can, I want to share that knowledge as far as we can possibly spread it, especially anybody who's in an agriculture school who, is going to take this and turn around into practice later on. And I mean, my long-term goal would be, I say this all the time because I'm good at like I get like the long-term visions. My brain just goes, I've got all that creativity, and then that just comes and like reins me in and puts me on a timeline. But the long-term goal would be is that we can make this successful as a case study. I would love to try to find a farm that is in disrepair and turn it into like a farm education where you can actually take, so say, you found a farm with 50 acres and it's just been sitting barren and not doing anything for the environment. And it's just a bunch of grass and they've been haying it for the last 10 years. What if you took that and then put this in on a larger scale and actually gave it back to the earth, gave it the regenerative aspects, and then you really can like do something with that land. So, I mean, we'll always have this, this place up here, but to me, it's a case study to see what we can do. And then however we can share that knowledge with whoever else will listen, basically. Well, let's share it.
Part of that too, I want to have measurable results. So we got to find some way to, we're going to take soil samples and basically measure what organic matter, especially when we're talking, not so much about the market garden, when we're talking about this tree cropping system we're talking about up back. And with the chickens running through, and we're talking about raspberries and blueberries and Christmas trees and hazelnuts and apples and all these things. We want to take some samples and we want to get those analyzed. And then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, reanalyze those and see how much did we add to the organic matter?
How much did we add to the soil?
How much better did we make this by doing what we did?
Yep.
I love it. You talked to conservation about it, right? Yes,
we did.
Yeah, she was fun.
She was lovely.
She had a good time.
And I think it's kind of funny because, we approached her before we did these things, and she kind of said like, hey, usually people call me like once they have a problem. So it's really nice to be here when you're not like, like you asked me to come here and invited me here. And then that's the thing is we want to work with conservation. We want to make sure we're doing things properly and appropriately. And you shouldn't be, scared to have the conservationists show up on your site. You should be happy and excited to show them the things you have going on. So hopefully she can get us some connections with, students from the local colleges and stuff. Cause I'd love to like hear what they have to say, but also, help them learn as we're learning along with them.
And as part of this repivot, you're working on kind of a larger rebranding that involves a redesign of your website and your logo. Any ideas of when all of that is going to launch? Will that be towards the spring?
Yes.
Hopefully before the spring, right?
Well, we're going to have, we have like phases basically.
Website would be the winter probably. The logo, we already had the logo.
We have the logo. We have a new logo. We haven't relaunched it yet. So basically it's going to be in phases. And what we want is, we also have, which is very exciting, we've been working with an actual professional videographer, which if anybody has seen our previous videos, you will very quickly realize that we are not professional and we're not tech savvy at all. In my current method of
shooting for your cell phone,
shooting on my cell phone, saving to the drive, then downloading to my laptop, and then uploading to an editing server, it's like making me a crazy person. So we've shot one actual professionally shot cooking video that I'm really excited that's going to be coming out. And we're planning on, probably the farm stuff, timber frame stuff, that's going to continue to be self-shot, but
it's going to be
the cooking dodgy. Videos are going to be, that stuff will be dodgy.
Can you tease us what the culinary subject of the video is? Or is it a surprise?
No, we can tease it. It's a great use for a common summer, a summer bounty that you would probably have with sort of a fun twist, like flavor twist.
I've seen it.
You saw it?
Yeah. I can show it to you.
She's seen the test.
Nigella.
Oh.
I've seen the test, and there was some fun music that was playing in the background.
That is not the music that will be in the video.
But it was funny because the videographer was like, I have to change the music. It's a little Halloween-y. And like, as he wrote that, it was like, there was like shots of you like cutting things with knives. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Maybe we should leave it. Maybe we should.
It's like a good brunch food. I remember watching the Anthony Bourdain rip.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was on like an episode. He went out, typical Anthony, got too cocked up the night before. And then Nigella cooked him this.
Nigella Lawson cooked him this in the morning as like a hangover cure.
Yeah.
So it's a hangover cure. It's a good use of like summer produce.
It's awesome.
I made it
delicious.
for Stomping Jen is claiming I made this for her once.
You did, Jen. I'm so impressed.
Pancakes?
Yes, pancakes.
No.
Yes, because nothing says summer produce like pancakes.
Who wants pancakes with bread?
right, so that
Failing miserably.
so that's really exciting. So
I can hear the excitement.
Yeah.
are you renaming the farm as part of this? Are you still going to be Oak and Ash Farm and Distillery?
Yeah, well, yes, we are. It's Oak and Ash Farm. We've always been Oak and Ash Farm. It was Oak and Ash Farm and Distillery. We've dropped Distillery, and now we are Forest Farm. And this is something that we worked we fought so hard on this, like we couldn't come up with.
It's like name one of you kids.
It was, and we had. I mean, like literally, I named the twins right after I pushed them out, and that was just like, let's just go with these names. So it was really hard. So we wanted to go with like agroforest, because really we are forest and a farm. We are many things up here, but we are a forest farm. So nobody knew what agroforestry was, so we decided to go with a forest farm.
No, I just didn't like the ring of agroforestry too. So basically, we're rebranding as Forest Farm. So at every point of our agriculture, whether it's the market garden,
which is in the forest, it's like tucked in the forest.
There are trees involved around there. So some of these, like I look at them as like when I walk on the property and I'm looking at what I selectively cut, and I had a hard decision this week. I was looking at what's in the market garden and what's by this new timber frame structure with the foundation sitting there. And there's this beautiful red oak, very straight, like a good oak that I really like to leave. But I just looked at it and I'm like, this is still too close to this structure.
Yeah.
And the roots are going to mess with my foundation, and if the branch comes down, it's going to mess with my structure. And it's still, and I mulled over it for weeks, and finally I said, Lindsey, I got to cut it down. And I hated to do it because like that, it was a big tree. It was a good sized tree. And, I think it was probably 50 years old, but you're looking at it, and when I see big oaks like that here, I'm like, or big hardwoods, I'm like, that's like a heritage tree, kind of like that tree is older than me.
Yeah.
And it's going to live a long life, hopefully. But anyway, we cut that down, and I'm going to replace it with something a little further back that's going to benefit me. So I'll probably put a sugar maple back there, and it'll get good sun and exposure, and in 15 years I can tap it.
And when you
we're trying to replace anything we cut. It's not like we're not just like slash and burn up here. It's literally like a hard decision every time. We're like, but this tree is so pretty, like, and it's so beautiful, and it's like lived a hard life. And like, let's let it be.
So part of that, as we work these systems in, we're gonna pick the straighter, more healthy timber, and we'll keep that there, and the less productive, less desirable stuff we'll cut out, and that's where we're going to intersperse these crops and these systems.
But we're also using, I mean, that's kind of the whole point of it, is like we don't waste anything up here. I mean, that lumber gets used in multiple other ways, whether it be Matt carves an object out of it, or a beautiful piece of furniture, or it becomes a timber frame. Like everything gets used. And the forest, like we try to keep as much of the forest as we can. We produce forestry products, and we are a farm. So that is what we are. We are doing agroforestry up here, kind of on every level, no matter where it is. And
so that red oak is going to go towards something on the farm.
Yeah. So actually I wanted, again, you jumped right in, man. So we looked at that red oak, and it was super straight. And Lindsey was like, "What can we do with this?" I was like, "You know what? It's got good. We'll turn like whatever the butt end, the first butt of stump. We'll turn a little bit in the firewood, and then I have a couple good lengths. I'm gonna just cut them off, put them off to the side. I'll mill them up later, and we'll turn some of that into some furniture. And then." Where the upper section of it started going, and I'm like, hey, we get a quart of firewood out of it, and then the rest of it, where it's all real thin, I'm going to run it through my chipper, and that's going to go right back into the market garden where this thing stood over. And over time, so that's going to be my pathways in between my garden beds. So what do wood chips do in the garden? Well, they're going to soak up a lot of moisture. They're going to reduce erosion. it's like basically a sponge. So when it rains, they're going to soak up all that moisture. They'll release it back into there. And then over time, they'll decompose. And what they're going to do is just turn into soil. So that's going to restore all my health around my garden beds and just contribute to that mycorrhizal.
I can't say it. It's a very long
mycorrhizal bacteria that's in there.
It's the wood wide web.
Yeah, the wood wide web.
It's literally like the network of bacteria and mitochondria
and fungus, right? Mycosial. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. You may not know this about me. I was a microbiology major.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was. And
I'm so impressed.
This is one of the most fascinating things. I learned this in the last couple of years, that underneath our feet, right, trees are communicating with each other through fungal networks that connect their roots. That's how they talk to each other. And there's they just discovered this within the last 5 years. It's mind blowing. It's so incredible. So all of the stuff you're doing on your farm is helping to keep all of that healthy too. So you're gonna have happier trees through the practices you're doing.
They don't really like to see Matt coming up now because they never really know what he's gonna do. But hopefully we're honoring the trees of the past by turning them into either returning them to the soil to feed the soil or turning them into beautiful usable things.
Yeah, and all of this sounds, to the casual listener, I mean, all of this sounds like fun, but some of this is dangerous work, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit this week prior to the show, texting back and forth, and you told me about there was an accident on the farm. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Matt exploded his finger.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not a queasy person, but let me just tell you, if you are queasy, hopefully Matt will give the kitty version, but it was I was a little you can stop now. But seeing it happen, I actually have it on video, and I asked him if he wanted to see the moment that it happened, and he was like, "No, I'm good, thank you."
Oh my God. So what happened? A rock or a tree fell on you?
So we were, so actually we'll rewind a little bit. So, in the clearance and just getting things ahead with the market garden, I was like, okay, this week we're doing it. I'm going to take a couple of days off from work, and I'm going to get, cutting timbers and cutting this frame on the Morrison 10 joinery, and let's get it going. And then my cousin called me. My cousin runs a stump grinding business. And me and him were texting back and forth, and he's like, hey, I can come out this week. So I'm like, crap, I got rocks everywhere.
We got to clean up the market garden.
Clean up so he can get his stump grinder down here and get access to where I need him to grind because it works for him. So he's doing me a favor. So I was like, all right, stonewalling it is. Let's put the timber frame on hold. So we are making great progress.
Which makes me excited because it's something I can actually help with, and I don't need to just stand there and try to figure out what he's doing and being I don't really know what's happening. I can do that. And it also makes me feel really strong because I feel like I'm doing my Highland game workout, throwing rocks and picking giant rocks up. I'm this is why the Highland games were invented. And it's I am a Celtic warrior, and I feel really great about it. So I always feel excited when we do Stonewall.
So we had this pretty stubborn, it was a big rock, one you don't want to lift up. And shimmy it into place, and then it started going over, and I was trying to guide it where it went, and I don't know why my hand was under there.
Oh, so I was watching it happen, and the rock, so he smashed his finger between this giant boulder and the rock that he was trying to place it on that honestly wasn't much bigger than a cantaloupe. And it literally there was a thud, and then I looked at his face and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No." And he took his glove off, and it surprised us because we both saw blood, and there was so much pressure. His hand got smashed so bad that it exploded out the end, basically.
Oh my God.
It basically didn't.
If he had a bone there, if he'd hit it any further down, his bone would have been just crushed.
I was really surprised there was blood.
Yeah,
I thought I just smashed it like brute force, and then I jumped around and hopped around, and finally I'm like, something feels warm in here. So I took my leather glove off, and also there's blood running all down my hand, and it basically just ruptured my finger.
Oh,
and he had to, so because it was his nail, the pressure was building under his nail, and he had to perform some DIY, because these things only happen on Sunday evenings because that's how life is. He had to perform some DIY like ER stuff where he had to burn a hole in his fingernail.
The pressure from underneath the fingernail.
So he had to cut a hole basically in his fingernail and like squeeze the pressure out for, you know.
But anyway, it feels good. It feels good today. It really does.
And I asked him, did you take any ibuprofen? Well, no.
Yeah, this story.
I've given birth to 3 children, and I'm like, I don't think I can. No.
Yeah, this story isn't any less horrifying the second time around. It's just as horrifying.
If anything, you can just picture it more in your mind.
Yeah, so
it was bad.
So all of you who are listening to this, romanticizing this this farm life, you know, this is not for the weak of body and mind.
Nope.
There are serious risks that come along with this.
Yeah. And
so I was right back out there today. Fingers a little tender, but I was like, you know what? I need to get this thing finalized so I can get what I need to get done.
Yeah, because it doesn't end. Like we still have a deadline to get stuff done, and like he couldn't dare stand to watch me build stone walls by myself anymore.
And my cousin basically dropped off his stump grinder. Was like, "Hey,
I'll be back.
I gotta come back in a couple days because I'm not leaving out here because I gotta make money." So,
so the show must go on, and like it is. And we don't have livestock, and I will always say, as soon as you add livestock, like the complications and the hardships of farming is like it just multiplies. So this is just prep. This is literally just like prepping it for, you know, for future endeavors.
So what are you going to be working on as we transition into winter, like fall and winter, and you know the earth starts going to sleep? What are y'all going to be doing over the winter to get ready for spring?
So what we got to do immediately, as far as the farm enterprise, is finalize what we're doing down in the market garden, which be finish the border walls with the get all the rocks that we have piled for stone walls out of the way. Yep. And then we got a guy from in town here, Jeff from Ruby Ranch. He's got a bunch of compost that he's hopefully got available for us, and we're going to put in our beds.
Our wood chips in our
wood chips. So we're going to establish where we're going to put these vegetables in the spring, and we're going to put those to bed. So part of the system with the no dig, no-till growers is you tarp that over, so you kind of put it to bed, and any invasive weed seeds, and you're covering them so they can't get sunlight and they die. So you're just basically preventing it. So you can just uncover them and plant right into the beds, which is what we did this spring in our regular garden. It allows all that soil web to just do its thing for the winter. Mm-hmm. So we'll put everything to bed, and then over the winter, we'll move our focus up. Yeah, well, before that, we're going to use the timber frame for the garden shed down front. And then once we get into dark winter here, then we're going to go up back and start logging what we have to log to get those tree rows when we were talking about, so we can run them poultry in between, because that'll be the next step. And I think that's more that where the forest farm comes into play up there. So
and then it's just prepping, like just organizing, like figure our crop out. We also I'm going to be putting out for anybody local. It would be really helpful for me. I'm going to be putting out a questionnaire on what you'd like to see from a CSA. Really, this first year is kind of our trial run. We're going to be opening it to a super limited number of people, because we just want to make sure that we can really sustain it.
Well, we have a certain experience in mind, so I want to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously,
we want people to be happy.
That's what I'm saying. Where we know we're going to produce because we've already produced
for ourselves.
X amount for ourselves, so we kind of have a quantified outcome that we were able to do. So we're like, okay, let's make sure we create the experience we want for the other people, and then always whatever we have that's extra, we can sell in more conventional means.
Yeah, just for planning purposes.
Question.
Just let me make this comment.
Question.
Just for planning purposes, the very best thank you dinners I've ever been to included local podcasters. Just for the record.
You will of course be invited.
Go ahead, Stomping Jen, please.
Will there be biscuits on your CSA?
Biscuits.
With hot butter and maple syrup.
They will absolutely be at our thank you dinners, but I don't think they will be a part of an actual weekly CSA because I don't think that the health inspector will be too pleased with me.
Oh, no, you can't make food products and sell them. That stinks.
No, it's so crappy. Which is why thank you dinners are roped into the price of admission, so to speak, for CSA, because I would love nothing more with an events background than to just like sell y'all tickets to farm dinners and like have them every week. And nothing would make me happier in the world than to do that as just a business. But unfortunately it's not possible.
Sorry, this is like off the podcast or whatever, but I sent you that guy, right?
Yes.
That has that farm that he's doing that basically. He built like a huge kitchen-y type thing with a big fire and doing dinners.
In our area?
It's like
Probably.
up in like Greenfield or something. It's like
I think we already knew about that.
That guy.
There's a dude in the Berkshires that did very like
he did Francis Malmany like fire dinners and stuff, and I think he had a butcher shop. I think that was connected to the butcher shop.
I would kill for a butcher shop out here. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I would kill for a lot of businesses out here that would do very well in Belchertown, everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We will all support you. Just please come here.
All right. Yes. So when we go live with this, we're going to be Forest Farm, right? That's what we're going to be. Okay. All right.
And people will be able to. So my hope is that whether you're part of the CSA or not, you can always keep up with us on Instagram.
That's the best place.
That's the best place. And from there, you should be able to go to our website and just learn a little bit more about what we're doing. We're hoping to do we're going to be doing some blog posts to just kind of update people on what we're going to be doing. And most of those will go hand in hand with videos on our YouTube channel. So it kind of is all connected, and there's multiple places you can get information. And if we are having an event, an educational event of any kind that we're going to be selling tickets to, again, we'll, make note of it on our Instagram, and you can find more info. You can go to the website from there to sign up and get tickets for it. So that's kind of the long-term goal, but you can always find out what we're up to on the Insta.
The gram.
The gram.
Yeah, and part of it too was not everything's gonna be pay to play type of stuff too. We're gonna offer like
some things are just
farm tours will always be free. Come up and do it.
Absolutely.
Just all you gotta do is reach out and then we gotta coordinate. And
cooking videos are always going to be free. Some of the stuff is just going to be like, hey, we're just. Yeah, well, whatever you want to know, we want you to be involved in the process, and we want you to be learning along with us, whoever you are, whether you are part of our CSA or you're just like, hey, we're on an agriculture tour of Belchertown, like come on over and, we'll walk you around the farm and tell you what we got going on.
I'm an educator, Stomping Jen, you know this, and I love the educational aspect of this.
Yeah, I have a degree in education that I haven't been using, so I figured, why not?
This is amazing.
Now, do you want to know how much stuff too? I'm like, so now I'm 35 and I'm like looking stuff up and watching YouTube and reading stuff. And I'm like, my grandparents did this. And they could have told me when I was a kid, and I just missed that window.
Because there was no.
And now I'm trying to relearn it.
Right.
There was no relevance to it at the time.
There was no relevance, and it's all stuff that they didn't think to teach us because they were like, well, this is going to be obsolete. And like people are coming back to that.
Everyone's typing on computers now.
Yeah.
Right. Like think of how many pieces of knowledge we have on how to survive and do things that nobody knows how to do anymore because nobody thought to pass it down. So we're relearning old skills. I mean,
well, I love it. I love like when we talk with you and like, you know, Jeff from Ruby Ranch and like you guys are all so young and I love it. And you're all connecting.
I don't feel very young.
We got to get this Jeff on
When
here.
I say young, I mean like you're not old school farmers, right?
Jen, you're not old though.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not saying I'm old either. I'm talking about this new generation of farming that we're talking about, you know, like Phoenix Fruit Farm, you know, like, I mean, she's probably older than me, but like.
She's an entomologist?
She's an entomologist?
And she's an insect person. That's her knowledge base. She knows entomologists.
Whoa. We'll get her on the podcast.
Get her on. She's great.
But I love the idea of having like the tour of all the ag places in Belchertown.
And a lot of us, we know each other and we're all supporting each other.
That's something we need to set. Is like, remember we went out. So we went out to like the Berkshires probably 7 years ago or whatever. We did like this farm to table trail.
Yes. And it's a thing.
So like that's something. Obviously, we're not really ready to be on it right now, but like, so there was a taste trail.
Yeah,
it was by the Chamber of Commerce, which we've talked about this Stomp and Jen.
Yep.
And you've got so many of us. I feel like we're at the cusp. I feel like there's so many of us and we're all just like plugging away, doing our thing and in our own lane. And we're all kind of talking to each other and going, wait, you do that? And you know that?
Yeah.
And we can all be friends and we can all work together.
You've got to be
something great is going to happen.
You've got to be like the microzobial network.
Yes.
Well, and I think
we're starting to make our connections.
And it needs to start happening this fall and winter because you guys are all super busy during this.
Stomping Jen, what are we going to do? How are we going to get involved in this?
I'm already knee deep. I'm like elbow deep into all this work.
I feel like I should be planting something or making something.
Oh, outside? I can't do it. We gave our box to our 13-year-old. I can't. I can't handle it. It's too much for me.
We could convert our pool into a frog pond.
No.
And we could
breed
frogs.
You know what they built over the summer for their girls?
What?
They like took one of those giant, like, what was it? Like a cow trough or something? It's like a giant tub. And they made it.
That was for me.
Yeah. They like made it into a pool with a pump and like a whole thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
We made a fast tank pool and it's glorious. And let me tell you something. Like, it's great for our kids. They've splashed around in it. They can play it. But that is for us.
I went in yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's freezing outside.
Yesterday. After she took a tub, she decided she didn't want to get out of the tub and she wanted to go into the pool. And we were like, okay. So we put her in. Crazy. Yeah. Well, and we're like, just like, okay. But let me tell you something. When we were, what were we doing?
What?
We were doing some farm activity in like the middle of summer and like wanted to die. And we were like, when this is over,
pouring concrete.
Oh, we were pouring concrete on the slab for the market garden. And I looked at him and we live in the middle of the woods. And I promise I won't do this once we have people coming up here for the CSA. I looked at him and I went, I'm going skinny dipping in that pool. And it was, I was going skippy dipping as our oldest called it, skippy dipping. And it was like the best money we ever spent was on that stock.
That's right. Freedom.
No sneaking up on the oak and ash farm in the middle of summer.
I will not be re-performing my skippy dipping.
That is
freedom. That are listening are horrified right now.
That is freedom right there.
That's right.
It's total freedom. That's why we live in the middle of nowhere.
Here's a challenge. You've got to build one of those, convert that thing into one of those Swedish hot tubs where you like have a coil that's connected to it.
Snorkel tub.
No, but Matt does want one of the Swedish. He wants a sauna, which to me is literally like like that and hot yoga are at like the top of my list of like never, ever, ever.
Oh,
like that sounds like my nightmare.
Oh,
I'm
you would
with
love it.
No, I'm with Lindsay. No hot yoga.
Oh, hot yoga is
I don't like to be
awesome.
hot. I like to be cold. No, that is my definition of hell, hot yoga.
All right. So it's clear. It is clear to us that you are very busy with all of this. And you also have your other job. So
And three
small
babies.
children
yeah,
who
3 small children. So
Yep.
do you have any time to do anything? Like, what do you do for fun? Or is it all is this your fun? This building the future here?
we work.
Yeah.
We've said this from the beginning. Matt, for funsies, is just like, hey, I'm going to go down and like build something or like cut a tree down or like carve something
Yep.
or go build a stone wall. Like that's what he does for fun because he doesn't know what else to do with himself. He does hunt sometimes, although.
Yeah, so I'm a downhill skier, cross country ski.
Yeah, we're big into the cross country skiing.
We're big skiers, and then ride my bike once in a while, and then in the fall, I'm an avid grouse hunter.
Oh.
I knit and I sew badly on all those things. I'm like a mediocre knitter sewer, and I cook as my stress relief, and I exercise when my children allow it to be, because it is like I desperately need 30 minutes to myself where nobody's crawling on me and yelling in my face. So
You don't bench press them? Take one twin in one arm, one twin in the other?
I do kettlebell swings with them a lot. And it is like when you do squats with like 20-pound twins on each arm, like that's a legit workout. But no, I would like some time. That's my me time. So that's what I do for fun when it is allowed.
What are you going to do?
But yeah, we work.
Yeah, we work, but I think we're on the cusp of the annual grouse hunt here.
Yeah, he does. This is once a year. He's not. I know many hunters who are selfish. I don't really know any other way to put it. And he's not a very selfish hunter. He's here or working, or he's helping me out with all the kids, like keeping my sanity.
Do you travel?
He's 1 year front.
Do you travel great distances to do this grouse hunting?
Yeah, the grouse population down here isn't too great, so we usually go up to Maine, and that's me and a couple buddies go up, and that's just out in the middle of nowhere. And
is there a hunting lodge involved?
Sawtooth wants to be invited. He's like, I need to know more about.
I feel like I have an absence of grouse hunting in my life.
So we used to go up to. So my family roots are in down East Maine, which is up on New Brunswick border.
Which you should watch his Down East Maine baked bean video. It's great, by the way.
So that's where we used to go up to my grandmother's place, and then the venues changed here and there. But just we're trying to put together the pieces for that this year.
Nice.
It's just good getting away, and cell phones don't work, and no worries. You just deal with what you have to do during the day, and we stop and we cook and make coffee, and
we're so deep in parenthood that we don't know how to do these.
Yeah, and then we clean birds. And
is there horseplay involved?
Oh yeah, there's horseplay. Yeah.
You like desperately want to go on this trip. I can tell. He has this look on his face.
All right, let's change the subject. All right, last question. This is a new question we've been asking everybody who comes on the podcast. This is a good question. And you can interpret this any way you want. I want you both to answer this, okay, in your own way. All right. What have you seen that you cannot explain?
I think you asked us this question last time.
Oh, did I?
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
I have a good, a different version.
I didn't play this music last time.
We're just new people, he said.
Yeah, we're not old podcast. We're like, you clearly just like, we mean nothing to you, or we're not. We've already forgotten our previous.
I have to say, you mean everything to me.
I will not take your lies anymore. So I have seen, I think you asked Matt if we'd seen anything out in the woods.
Yeah,
having twins, identical twins, I have seen some stuff happen that like you just can't you just can't explain. And like, we know a lot of things about genetics and how it works. And it is amazing how you can take two people who literally have the same DNA and are completely different personalities, but I've watched them work as if they have one mind. I mean, sometimes they're terrible to each other and like beat the crap out of each other pretty well. But I've seen them do things as if they already know what the other one is going to do because they're just working with the same mind. And that is like, I can't explain that. And it freaks me out.
So they're connected on some kind of level in your observation.
They've got their own, network. It's like their brain is connected, and they
can be in different rooms. And if one's having a bad time, the other one's like can out of the blue have a bad time. Like there's definitely something deep.
When they were like newborns, we used to look at each other and go, they're twinning us right now, because they would just like both like explode at the same minute. Like just like everybody was fine and then everybody was having a bad day at once.
Well, and then like one for a real reason, the other one for no
reason, just because their sister is they're having a hard time. Yeah.
Stomping Jen, and Lindsey and Matt, I'm putting this in the supernatural column. We've collected more evidence. Stomping Jen. I'm glad I asked the question
what else is
again.
in the bank? Is this? Does this supernatural bank have a lot of?
It does.
I don't want to know.
No, it does. We've got. Well, last week we interviewed a Air Force lieutenant colonel who refused to confirm any official Air Force reports.
Or deny.
He
was from New Mexico, so he grew up around
and so he confirmed for us that when he was outside of the military, before he joined, he had some sightings of UFOs. But he would not confirm or comment on the Air Force's official footage of UFOs. He refused. And I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't blame him either. I feel like there's lots of things out there that I know I can't explain, but I don't want to know about them.
Let's see. We had somebody tell us about ghosts in the woods.
Yeah, no, those I don't want to know anything about.
What else, Stomping Jen? There's been a few other supernatural occurrences.
I don't remember.
Ghosts, lots of ghosts.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't like that.
Yeah. So we've got aliens, ghosts, and psychic connections. No Bigfoot
he's been
yet.
On the search for Bigfoot.
We'll find
him. He's out there.
You talk to people from Hardwick.
Yeah, talk to people from Hardwick. Don't they have their own?
They got the wooden cutouts of Bigfoot up there.
Yeah, they do.
We're gonna find it. I feel like
they have its own name. It's like, well, whatever. Some loving, endearing nicknames that they have for the Bigfoot.
Quabinator.
The
hard man of the forest.
And really, it's just Matt who hasn't shaved in 3 days. He's walking through the woods
with a bloody thumb.
Bigfoot's big and I'm small.
That's true.
Oh, there's nothing small about what you two are up to.
It's true.
On Forest Farm, soon to be Forest Farm. But
it was Oak and Ash Forest Farm.
Wait, I thought it was. What's the full name? Stomping Jen is asking the question.
Oak and Ash Forest Farm, but really, we're Oak and Ash Farm. It's always Oak. Honestly, what it came down to is our logo person.
Oh, I thought
dropped the distillery.
I thought we were
focus on the farm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were getting rid of the Oak and Ash. That's staying.
No, that's who we are.
Okay, Oak and Ash.
The spot in our logo underneath where it says distillery. We had a conversation where we're like,
with our logo, our branding person, who's lovely.
If we're doing the farm stuff more and the distilleries on the back burner, then we got to take distillery off there.
Right. And because we're not a licensed distillery, we really we've had a lot of confusing phone calls, people, especially.
Can you make hand sanitizer?
Yeah. Are you making hand sanitizer? Can I buy rubbing alcohol off of you? And I'm like, well, technically we're not a distillery. So it was almost like a false information. I didn't want to put that sign up there and have people coming up and going, oh, you're a distillery? And us go, well, no, not yet. So to make things less confusing, we dropped it. And because she designed the logo such so that it fit farm, it was balanced visually with farm and distillery. When she just took distillery out, it looked weird. It was literally like a blank space, and it didn't flow. So she's like, I need another word to throw in here. So that is why we added Forest Farm. And again, it is what we are doing up here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're Oak and Ash Farm. That's what our website is. Like, that's kind of like what it'll stay. But we are a forest farm. And so hopefully if I can find somebody to make me a steel cutout sign, we'll have our sign up by the spring as well. There's so many things. And, we want it to be visually appealing to people when they come up here. And I have the event planner in me goes crazy with like, oh, we can do a water fountain over here and do this and that. And we can have a garden through the woods that comes over here to get into the garden. But it is, we want people to really enjoy the experience. If you can't have a homestead or a farmstead and you don't have the time, the energy, the money, the land, let us be that for you,
Or you don't want to do it, but you like the idea of it.
Yeah, I love
you
it.
just don't
That's
want to.
me. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
come on out.
We took up an hour and 50 minutes of your time. Can you believe this?
I need to go to bed. I have to work in the morning.
It felt like 20 minutes. This was one of the breeziest podcasts we've done in a while. Isn't it, Stomping Jen? Breezy. It was fun.
Okay, I'm glad. We did a lot of talking.
Now I have like a easy breezy beautiful cover girl in my head.
Do a pose for us, Stomping Jen. You just showed me your belly.
I didn't mean to.
That was a cover girl type of situation.
Oh my goodness.
She pulled up her hoodie and showed me her belly for some reason. I don't know why.
Just adjusting my pants, so it's okay.
Very suggestive.
You want some belly? You want some belly?
Yeah. All right.
All right,
well,
next time we do an interview, we're going to do it in person.
We're going to have to. Hopefully this damn thing will be over, this pandemic, and we'll get together.
If not, we'll just do it from 12 feet away just to be safe.
Yeah.
And we'll shout at each other.
All right. Lindsey and Matt from Oak and Ash Forest Farm, thank you for coming on and talking to us again. I really enjoyed this. This was something else. Stomping Jen. I do want to do one plug for a friend.
What?
Our esteemed poet of the official poet of the Soft Serve podcast, Joshua Michael Stewart.
And he's like our new composer.
And a musician. He's everything. He has a new book out called the
Dharma Bums.
Of
What's
what?
it called?
How could you not know?
What do you mean?
It was your job to.
You didn't tell me this was going to be my job.
Don't be mad, Joshua Michael Stewart. Hold on.
God.
It's she's looking it up. I'm going to stall.
I didn't know it was like.
Anyways, he has a new book out where he took the Jack Kerouac's On the Road and did a kind of poetic technique to it. I think called reduction poetry.
The Bastard Children of Dharma Bums.
The Bastard Children of Dharma Bums. Okay, Joshua Michael Stewart, the official poet of the Soft Serve podcast, has a new book out, and we just want to promote that because he's been so good to us. So go get that. It's on Amazon. All right, back to the guests at hand. Thank you again so much. Stomping Jen, this is your chance to express your thanks and tell our fans anything you want as we're closing. Go ahead, please.
We love you. Wear a mask.
You forgot to thank our guests.
Thank
please.
you. Oh, them? Lindsey and Matt. I miss you guys.
We miss you too. Thanks for having us on. I'm going to go because I have to go to bed.
Okay, thank you so much. And to our fans, thank you. We love you. We hope you enjoyed this. Be well, be safe, wear a mask, and
bye now.
Bye now.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed